Hey everyone, I have a really exciting show for you today. As you all know, I went to some events in early October. One of them I raved about was Flip Hacking Live. And I think there was like 12 or 13 speakers, but there was one that I stalked and said, you know what, I've really got to get her on this show because I think she has a pretty unique superpower, and we'll get into that in a minute. But let's welcome Beka Shea to the show. How you doing, Beka?
Hey, I'm great. I like that intro. I'm just
Yeah,
gonna listen to that every day before I go to bed.
make it your ringtone. That would be great. Well, Beka, why don't you just jump in, kind of say who you are, what you do in this business, where you are in the country, kind of just a basic bio, if you don't mind.
Sure. So I started off as a rehabber. I'm located outside of Philadelphia, but when I started real estate investing, we lived down in the Tampa area,
Hmm.
and I had been a mechanical engineer prior to this, and so I was pregnant with my third daughter and thought, I kind of don't want to be doing this working 60 hours a week. My salary was definitely capped. There was not going to be a whole lot of bandwidth no matter how well I performed.
Hmm.
And I was traveling a ton.
Yeah.
And so I was on maternity leave and I said, let's try this house flipping thing. And we flipped 3 houses the first year. I quit my job pretty soon after the first one. Loved my job, but I just didn't love the travel.
Yeah.
And then I started, we did 3 and then I did 6 and then I wanted to do 12. And I realized I was spending more time focused on finding my next deal than I was on the actual paying attention to the rehabs.
Ah,
Around that time, I joined 7-figure flipping,
yeah.
just thinking like, I need help, right? Like if I'm going to break through this kind of ceiling that I hit. So I joined that back in 2016 and, we did 12 houses, and then I reluctantly started wholesaling by the end of the year because I needed to market to find deals, which I think I would change my stance on that. And we could
Sure.
dive into that later. But
Okay.
at the time, that's what I thought. I thought I needed to market to find my deals, and wholesaling looked so easy.
Very
And
cool.
then we've just done, more deals every year. I think we did, I don't have the numbers exactly, but I say like we did 15 or 18 deals that first year, and then we did in the 20s, and then we did like 38, and last year I think we did 46 or 48. Just kind of steady ramp up progression, and this year
Very
we'll probably do about the same number.
okay.
We're right on that path.
Very, very cool. So a couple things real quick. So that first year, those 3 you did, would that have been roughly 2013, you think?
Well, it was right after my daughter was born, and she was born in
This is a trick question.
yes 2013.
Very, very cool. So so 2013, you're pregnant or soon to be. You decided what was the spark that I want to try to be a rehabber or flip a house? I mean, do you remember what it was? Was it a show? Was it a check on social media? What sparked it?
No, well, I grew up, my parents had renovated houses,
Oh, okay.
and I apologize. It looks like this is the one that was born when I
Oh,
started.
hi, little one.
Um,
Bye, little one.
I did tell them not to come in.
It's okay. It's okay.
And so my parents had renovated houses and they had some rentals. And I remember as a kid going into this old Victorian, 1800 house and knocking down, sledgehammer, knocking down the walls. I just
Yeah.
thought that was cool.
Yeah.
I've always been handy. My parents have always been those kind of updating people. And then my husband and I, like that was our idea. That's our idea of fun, is to do a
Ah,
house project on the weekend.
okay. You're a sick human being or a sick couple. I
Yeah.
get it. That's okay though.
Brings me joy.
You know thyself. Swing the hammer. So I guess go back to your parents, because that's actually interesting. I don't think I've had anybody on the show that says, "Hey, my parents." I call it dabbling. Doesn't sound like they had a
Mhm.
big business, right? So they
Yeah.
worked full time during the day, and then they dabbled one a year, kind of thing, one every 2 years. Was that kind of the feel?
I'm the youngest, so I feel like it wasn't really during when my memory was super
Sure.
formed, but
Okay.
I think they bought like 2 or 3 rentals
Okay.
and they renovated them, and it didn't go well.
Oh,
That much
oh,
I know. That
good
was not a
point.
period. They loved the renovation part. They made
Yeah.
them beautiful, but the whole like tenant management thing
Yeah.
afterwards was not their cup of tea.
All right. Well, that makes sense. Rehabbing is fun, right? You get to break it down, you get to put it all back together and hand it off to someone else. So I get it. That makes perfect sense. So you do the 3. You said you quit. Like, did you quit your day job, the travel intensive job, when the third one was sold? That kind of thing. Right? Once you had a proof point, was that what happened?
it was after we finished the renovation. So I had my daughter in October. I'm sorry, I had my daughter in July. I had 3 daughters that run together. I had that daughter in July, and I did go back to work in like October.
Okay.
By that point, our house was finishing renovation and it was on the market. And it was kind of, once it went under contract, that to me was, okay, proof of concept, which I think was like December timeframe.
Very cool.
And I said, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, it's fairly important, the proof of concept. And not just one, right? Just not one fluke or whatever. The fact that you did 3, you had that proof of concept, you know, you de-risked the situation. So many people on social media want it to seem like, just do it, just quit, take all the risk now. I'm like, whoa.
And I was fortunate because I was in a position where my husband and I were both engineers. We moved to Florida, which is not a high cost of living state, from Boston. We were still making our Boston salaries. And we had made some smart financial decisions that, I mean, we really had a conversation of, let's just try this for a year. If it doesn't work, I didn't burn any bridges. I can go back.
Yeah.
So. Very,
very cool. All right. So that goes well. The next year, sounds like you did 6. And then you had a pivot, 7-figure flipping. You had the opportunity to look at lots of things. You obviously have a past relationship with Bill Allen, which it had to help. But what made you look up and go, I need help? Because most people would look at doing 6 years successful.
Yeah. I made the decision to do 12, one a month prior to that. And I had reconnected. I shared some of the story from stage, but I had reconnected with Bill via social media. Like, we hadn't talked for 10 years. And I started talking to him, and he said, this is the best part about this conversation is, if you know anything about Bill Allen, we have this conversation. He had done a rehab or 2 rehabs that year. I had done 6. And I said, next year, I think I'm going to do 12. And if I average $20,000 profit on each one net, then that's $240,000. That would be amazing. And he said, why would you try and do so many houses? Why wouldn't you just like cherry pick, 4 and make 40,000, or, whatever the equivalent is, do less, make more. And I said, I just don't think you can bank. Like, when you start to get the volume, you can't really bank on hitting those home runs, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 renovations. But I feel pretty confident that I can find $12,000, $20,000 renovations.
Okay. I see logic both ways. All right.
Yeah.
So where does that go? So that sparks an idea, or what happens?
So then I said to him, I talked to him, and I talked to 2 other people who were 3 other people who also were kind of in this point where they were looking to grow their real estate investing, and they wanted to, do it, and they weren't really sure how. And so I said, why don't we all get together once a month? Right. This kind of leads into what I talked about at Flip Hacking Live. I said, let's get together once a month, whatever your goal is, and we'll just check in with each other and just see how it's going.
Yeah.
And so I think our first time we checked in was in December. And then the second time was in January. Maybe it was November, December. Bill joined in January of 7-Figure Flipping. He called me from the event. And I know we had done a couple accountability calls, and it was hard to get people to actually show up. And so he said, you got to join this group. I'm telling you, it's a game changer. You're getting around peers who are willing to share everything they're doing and pull you along. You should join it. And I got on the phone and I grilled Andy McFarland, who, I didn't know him at the time. He's the sweetest guy, but I didn't know that. So I was like, who are you? I need $25,000, so much money. And we joke about it now, but he's like, I remember that. I'm like, I remember. I was pacing my bedroom, like yelling at you.
Oh, that's so funny.
And he said, being typical Andy, he said, you don't have to do it if you don't want to. I'm not going to force you. I don't need your money. It's just really, my time's valuable, and I put a lot of energy into this. And don't you, he sales me a little. Don't you think it's only fair that I get something out?
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact conversation, but
but it was obviously positive because you signed on the dotted line, if you will. Yep.
Yeah. And at the end of it, and then I got to know him, and I felt so bad for grilling him like that. Because he's just the nicest person. He is
very nice young man. It is awesome. So the one thing that I wanted to talk about here was the importance of a mastermind, being around like-minded individuals. It just fundamentally changed your business, right?
Oh, my brain. It fundamentally changed my brain.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's talk about that, because a lot of people look at it and I'll just umbrella masterminds here, right? It does cost money. And a lot of people look at it like you did, right? What do you do? You know, you grill them. But so you've done it. You're several years into this now. Talk about how it changed your brain, because people need to feel like, okay, I have an example of just fundamentally changing someone's business.
Yeah. First off, I'm a pretty like forward-thinking visionary, and I didn't think that I had set any self-imposed limits. And it wasn't until I got into that room that I started, like, I would hit this wall and I was like, ugh, I can't do that. And I was like, wait, what do you mean you can't do? You can do anything. So I walked into that room thinking, if number one, I'm going to do 12 deals this year, and that's amazing. Coming from doing one rehab to I can handle 12 rehabs. And then I got around people who, you know, Andy was like, yeah, we wholesaled 20 deals this month. And I was like, what would that even be like? How would you move that many properties at a time? Because you start off as a solo entrepreneur, and you think, I'll just do it. And it's very it's risky, but the risk is only yourself. And then at some point you see what's possible and you think, oh, I want to get to that place. And you hit some wall and you have to think, well, why do I care about that? And the number one thing that I've seen people do moving from solo entrepreneur to a business is this idea that you're then responsible for other people. Not just, if this fails now, it's not just you that goes down with it. And we're all pretty adept at recovering. It's all these people. And that to me was a huge mental block, that hiring people thing.
Yeah. Very cool. So then then your business ramps, you really jumped from, you know, I think it was 15 to 20 and then 38. You made a comment early on about wholesaling and having to market, and you wanted to get back to that. So why don't we go scratch that a little bit? I think you were saying maybe you didn't have to market to get deals, or sort of raise that back up. Where'd you want to take that? So
it's interesting because I don't know if you would identify yourself more with a salesperson or a marketing person. I think that as I started to get into the sales arena, I started viewing, again, talking about mental shifts, I started viewing every interaction as a sale. Like, I want my kids to do something, I have to sell them on what's in it for them. You know?
Yeah.
I want to go somewhere, I have to sell it. Somebody's talking to me and they want me to do something, they have to sell me. And it did fundamentally change me from just being like, railroading my way through stuff to, okay, no, I have to get alignment, I have to get buy-in. So that was a first shift in my thinking in a good way. Like, I don't mean sales in a bad way. I mean sales in a good way, getting people to buy into your vision. The second fundamental shift was that I realized we are constantly marketing. Like, if everything's a sale, everything that happens in our life is usually some form of marketing. And so when I first thought about, I want to do 12 rehabs, I want to do one a month, that means I needed to make 10 offers. I probably needed to think about 80 properties. I probably needed to go see about 30. I needed to make 10 offers, and I would get my contract. And I was like, well, I'll just go direct to seller. Now I've started to think of it differently, in that if I knew what I knew now and I were going to scale my rehabbing business, I would not put money into a wholesaling machine. And this might be controversial, but what I would do instead is I would spend time marketing to wholesalers and to agents, and that networking piece, just send them constant text messages. In fact, there's somebody in 7-figure flipping. He got up at like 2 or 3 meetings ago. He made, I want to say $600,000 on rehabs and this was 18 rehabs, I think. It was in California, so they were high dollar rehabs. And he didn't spend a dime in marketing, but what he did was he got on every wholesaler's list, and every Monday morning he would send them a text message. How you doing? Just checking in. He'd send them a joke. He would keep himself top of mind. And they knew he could perform, and they would call him. He didn't spend a dime. He didn't have a lead intake person. He didn't have an acquisitions rep. He just built relationships.
He's my hero. He's my hero. That is a mind shift. And frankly, one that works regardless of technology, right? Regardless of regulations, regardless of do not call lists, regardless of this, that. I mean, all these technology innovations that have made it easier to reach owners, all of that will change over time. This networking with agents and wholesalers, that doesn't change. That's pretty cool. Oh, awesome. So go ahead.
It's just become, this is over the past year, now 2 years, I went big on marketing. I went to scale my wholesaling company started spending like $20,000 to $23,000 a month on marketing to all the, channels. Yeah. And then after about 6 months of that, I started dialing it back and really digging into what's performing, what's not performing. My cost per contract was $4,500. Can I bring that down to $4,000? Can I bring that down to $3,500? And I remember sitting down with Mike Simmons, who also loves marketing and metrics, and having a conversation with him. And I said, what would it take to get to as close to $0 per contract as possible?
There's a shift.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really came down to, wow, you need to work on networking and building relationships. Like, what if instead of sending out 6,000 postcards every month, or I think I was sending out like 20,000 postcards every month, what if I hired someone whose whole job it was to just stop by probate attorneys and bring coffee and donuts?
Exactly.
One day every month, just with a little reminder, here's what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cost in that, right? But it's a lot less cost.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's funny you bring this up. I don't know if you've seen what I'm doing with what I call the hub in Fresno. So I live in the Bay Area, right? San Francisco, we said earlier, but I've only invested in Fresno, California. You probably know Don Costa, who was a member of that 7-figure flipping for a while.
I've been to Fresno before. I went to NPS in Monterey, and I don't know why I went to Fresno. I had friends stationed there.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. So anyways, I ended up buying an office building there because that's all I want to do is market via networking. I'm not going to direct mail. I'm not going to do this.
Oh, good. Let's start an accountability group.
Yeah. I mean, but I really did. I bought a building. I'm into the building roughly $200,000, and I've stocked it with real estate entrepreneurs. And now I'm working with them to market to agents and probate attorneys. And I'm hosting monthly meetings and meetups, and it's all going to be network based. It's fun. I like it. It lights my fire, and I get to control it. So it's funny you bring this up. That was my vision for it. I had no idea that it wasn't original, but I guess there's no original ideas, so it's okay.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's okay. It just tells me it's a good idea. So when you looked at when you did 46, which I think was last year, that sounds like some of that was wholesaling, or half of it was wholesaling, or what was the kind of split?
Yeah, about 18. I think we did 18 rehabs last year.
Okay.
And
so 2/3 was wholesaling, roughly.
Yeah.
Okay. As you look out to 2020, 21, you kind of see that split being the same, or have you pivoted as we just talked about? And you're like, know what? I'm going to get in front of this. We're going to do better, more profitable, and less transaction flips. What do you think?
Well, so I actually have gone through a major transition in the past 6 months. I discovered through probably the last 18 months when I started digging into the marketing that's a thing that I'm very good at. Is really nailing down like what's wasteful, what's inefficient, which goes back to my mechanical engineering background. I did something similar with energy usage.
Okay.
So I know the framework and the context of how to do it. So I started doing marketing consulting for some other people who are spending tons of money each month. And usually those are the people who are like really good at sales, right? They know they want to build a system. They want to track their metrics. They just do not want to have to do it.
Yeah.
And
I know the type.
Yeah. So they would come to me and say, you seem to be really good at this. Can you help me with it?
Yeah.
I said, sure. And it'll make me really happy to do it. So I started doing that, and I launched a company called Market Shark Consulting.
Yep.
And that's what we do, is kind of monthly looks and how can we save you money. And marketing really is a living animal, right? So what works now is not going to work 6 months from now. And then what doesn't work 6 months from now, another year later could come back.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you kind of constantly have to be tweaking and paying attention. And so we just do that for them. So I'm doing that. And then Bill also asked me to come aboard and help with the accountability groups in 7-figure flipping. So that's taking up some of my time. And when these things all started coming to the surface, I realized I don't have enough brain power. My husband realized I don't have enough brain power for all of this.
He's like, honey, come on now. Something has to go. Yeah. That's funny.
So I, more so I don't have the emotional bandwidth for it. Like having the day that you put the property on the market till the day it sells is just this huge weight on my chest.
Yes.
And so I decided, okay, I'm just going to step away from that. And then we're scaling back our wholesaling somewhat. So I don't have massive plans. I just want to do what we do well.
Okay.
and then allow myself to grow in the other areas where it seems like maybe my skill sets are even better suited.
Yeah,
So.
that makes sense. Well, let's talk about these accountability calls, because it was very clear that is a passion of yours. You are very good at it. And frankly, it's one of those superpowers that not many people have, right? Not many people like to be held accountable. It's kind of like these New Year's resolutions, right? Everybody throws one out there, and then like by the 3rd or 4th of January, it's gone. Not when Becca's around, right?
I don't know about that. We've done these accountability groups, and it started because I read the book, The 12-Week Year, and I wanted to do it. And I wanted people, the point is that you find a small group of people to meet up with once a week, and you set a 12-week goal.
Yep.
And if you're doing traction, it could be, your rocks or OKR. It's called all different things, but what am I going to focus on for 3 months? And what does that look like? What does focus look like? How does that manifest? So I started doing it in the group, just a couple people. And then I think we got up to like 20 people, and we realized that was too many to have in a group. So we broke it down into these small subgroups of 5 or 6 people. And then the last go around, I think we had 8 groups in the altitude group, and in the runway group, we had about 4 or 5. And I do find there's about a 30% attrition rate. I mean, some people, they want to do it, they want to be held accountable, but they just, maybe it's not the right time. Or
let's scratch that a little bit, because what I have found, because I ran sales teams, and we had 90-day sales cycle. It's kind of how I lived for 20 years of my life, right? And like in my profession, you miss a quarter, you get yelled at. You miss another quarter, you get fired, right? I mean, that's what I lived in for 20 years. So I get it, right? The 12, 13 week. What
did you think about that?
Well, the first 4 or 5 years, it was uncomfortable, but after doing it for a while, it's just how you roll. Right? I mean, it's amazing what you can get used to, frankly, good or bad in life. I mean, it's just amazing what you can get used to. But let's talk about it. So what I have found where people crumble or attrition, I'll use your word, attrition, as opposed to crumble.
Get crushed under the weight of it.
Yeah, exactly. Is there wasn't agreement on the goal. Right? They may have been talking to you. You may have said something. The person receiving it they thought it was a good idea, but it wasn't really theirs, right? It wasn't mutual.
Yeah.
So I've seen that, right? Like they're doing 1 or 2, you want them to do 12, but they only think they can do 4. So you agree on 10. It's like, well, that's not, so they look for anything
after 4 they're happy with. And you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing? Yeah. So they don't get there. And then the other one is, for whatever reason, they don't take the first step. If they just lean forward and force gravity to get them to the first step, they could start that. So I'm wondering if you see the same thing in accountability calls or goals where people see attrition. I have no idea.
So I've noticed that I think that's exactly right. People, they want accountability. They know that it would help them achieve their goals much faster. And, I think you'll get to the goal no matter what. It's just, can you shortcut that? Yeah. If you're really bought in and engaged in it, and you say, I want to flip a house, and I think you'll get there eventually. 5 years, 10 years down the road, you'll probably flip a house. Right. If you want to do it in the next 12 months, you probably need to make that a reality of, like I say, see it, write it, talk about it, get accountable to it.
Yeah. Have others hold you accountable, a group. Yeah. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So we had a bunch of people. We came off the event we had in October. Yeah. Tons of people were like, I want accountability. I'm so excited. And I said, great. And I made this form to get to your second point, where I see the wheels fall off is in being very clear about what your goal is, not just, I'm going to rehab some houses, but I'm going to rehab 2 houses, or I'm going to buy 2 houses to rehab, right? Yeah. Clear, not clear.
Yep.
And so I made this sign-up sheet, and I walked them step by step through it, little videos.
Sure.
And the number of people that just couldn't even get through that was, I want to do this. I really want to do it. Okay, I can't do it for you. No. You have to do it yourself. So.
Yeah. Is that the why? I mean, is the why missing, or they've missed the connection from the why? Or I truly want to help people. And if we can just get them from 0 to 1.
Maybe they need more education. Okay. I think it's still the dream is still too vague. It hasn't
Yeah, there
become
you go.
crisp
Yeah,
enough
the
yet.
why, the dream. Yeah, the why, the dream. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They can't see their vision yet. They know I want to become a real estate investor, but they haven't painted a vision of what kind of real estate investor are they? Are they going to be a passive,
Yeah,
a landlord?
right.
Are they going to, buy rentals? Are they going to do multifamily syndication? Are they going to be a private money lender? Like,
Yeah,
they just know I want to be a real estate investor, and then they can't get past that.
I stopped there. Very cool. Well, let's flip the script a little bit. And I know you've been doing this for years now. Why don't we tell about a huge success? Somebody that came in, they did the work, and they far exceeded theirs and maybe even your expectations of them.
Okay. Oh man, there's so many of them. It's really it's hard to pick one. I think probably the easiest one to highlight would be someone who set out to raise money. So I know one of the people in the group, they set a goal to raise $1 million in private money at 8% interest. Okay. So we talked about what that looked like, and that looks like a sales cycle. You have to identify who your targets are, and then you have to figure out how you're going to touch them repeatedly and grow that network. So the actions look something, actually, I think their goal was to raise $750,000.
Okay.
And so it's, pick up the phone, call 5 people on my list, write those 5 people a thank you card, follow up with them each week, and ask them for 2 referrals of other people who might be interested, right?
Yep.
If you just did those 4 things every week, week after week after week, it'll yield fruit. And the reason I said I think it was 750 because I remember that they crushed the goal and ended up raising $1 million. And it was kind of this delayed reaction of, at the end of the 12 weeks, I think they were below their goal. They hadn't hit their goal yet.
Right.
But then it kept rolling in over the next 2-3 months.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool. Very, very cool. Well, let's switch gears to Market Shark Consulting, because I know you're doing some pretty special things. I want to give you some time on that, because again, I think you, with your superpower, are uniquely able to help people in this real estate business. So let's talk about Market Shark Consulting.
Okay. So Market Shark is basically what we do is, I found it easiest just to go into clients. You have to trust me. and I say, because like I said, a lot of these are the very salesy people who they know they need help. They just don't know where to start with all the detail stuff.
Yep.
So usually I just say, look, give me your login to your CRM, to your call rail. If you have a bookkeeper, once a month, just have them send me your P&L.
Yep.
And that's actually pretty much it, I think. And then I'll go and I'll pull all the calls, and we'll filter it down to unique callers to see, you sent out this marketing, and the bookkeeper will send us the marketing expenses, right? So you sent out $5,000 worth of postcards, you got 500 calls, 500 unique calls, your response rate was X, your cost per call is this, you got 20 appointments off of it, your cost per appointment was this. Let's say you got 10 contracts, so your cost per contract is this, but what we really look at is cost per viable contract. So if 2 of those deals fell out, what did it cost you? And then we look at the ROI. So this marketing channel, what we're really looking for just at a base level is 3 to 1.
Okay.
So if you spend $1,000, we want you to make 3,000.
There you go. Okay. Very, very cool.
And the reason that I probably pulled that together from a bunch of different things that I've read and learned. Yeah. But when I think about it at the end of the day, if you're running a business and you have employees, if your return is 3 to 1, that means a third of your money that you make goes to marketing. A third's probably, at least a third, is going to your employees.
And your overhead. Yeah.
And sometimes it's like 50% is going to overhead or more. And then you want to make sure you have some room for some profit in there. So
ideally,
right. You start getting below 3 to 1, it's you're probably not making money.
No, yeah. And there are so many people that need this help from Market Shark, because I believe we are in for a business cycle shift. And not that this wonderful thing we do called real estate investing is going to change. It's just going to become harder and different, and people are going to have less equity. So you have to buy differently. And if they're not looking at the numbers honestly with that third party inspection, they're going to go out of business. I mean, I don't have to say it any other way. So what you're doing for folks is going to be if not a business saver, I mean, a lifesaver, it'll be a business saver for sure. So I'm glad you're tackling this given your superpower. So it's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
And what I find is that people they know in their gut, hey, my postcards probably aren't working. I mean, at this level, we work with people who are spending at least $15,000 a month. So there are multiple channels.
Yep.
And they don't necessarily realize, as long as their phone's ringing and appointments are being set, they don't know which is working.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we have one client who they spent $50,000 in direct mail. And I think they got one contract that made $10,000 maybe. If I'm remembering correctly. And I said to them exactly what we were talking about earlier. I said, man, what if you had hired somebody for $40,000 to go for $20,000 a couple hours a week to go network with probate attorneys and,
Exactly. Yeah.
What would that look like?
That's pretty
And maybe
cool.
it wouldn't work. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you got to ask the question. Sometimes the creative types, either the salesy or the marketing, because you got to have the blend, right? And you have to have the person who's inspecting the numbers. Otherwise, everybody does well in a market that's like this, but a market goes flat or, heaven forbid, turns down. I've been doing this 20 years. I invested pre-bubble, and I saw people that were worth 8 figures go bankrupt because they weren't watching the numbers and they didn't change. They didn't evolve, and it's a shame. And I don't want to see that again. That's why I do a lot of these daily updates, because I'm just trying to save that one person from making that mistake again, because it's so painful. So where can people find out more about Market Shark? You have a Facebook page, a website. How can they find out more about Beka? Because you're doing so many great things.
All the above. We have a Facebook page, Market Shark LLC, and then marketsharkconsulting.com. It kind of explains where we're at and gives you an opportunity to contact us if you want to have a phone call and chat about what you got going on. So this is, for me, it is a passion project. I love this stuff. And like you said, if it can just help one person,
yeah,
it's worth it.
Very, very cool. Well, Beka, this has been so much fun. I thank you for saying yes to this. And I hope lots of people reach out to Market Shark. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome.